Welcome to the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm your host, Minister Jonathan Simmons, and we thank God for all those of you who are watching us here, and also those of you who are listening to us on the legendary WIGO Pacesetter 1570 on your dial. Remember, you can find them online at WIGO1570.com. Now, here's the other cool thing. If you're listening to us, you can now listen to us on the app. Well, you could for a while, but listen to us on the app. Remember, here's how you do it. Go to the free TuneIn application. It's a free app. Download it to any iPhone or Android. Put in WIGO 1570 in a search engine, and voila, you'll find us broadcasting to you right here and right now. Well, it's a Saturday. It's a little different for us. Normally, you guys know that I do high school football on Thursday and Friday nights, and due to the inclement weather, a storm through, I think it was Hurricane Helene or something like that. Anyway, the bottom line is, huge storm front hit the Atlanta metro area, and consequently, all games were canceled. That's right. All Thursday night games, all Friday night games, all canceled, and most of them rescheduled for Monday and Tuesday of next week, which means we're going to have a week packed full of activity next week as we zoom in on our high school football gladiators, shall we speak, and so we say. Well, but the world of sports still goes on. We're talking a little bit about the upcoming games today. The big game on the docket in college football is the Alabama Crimson Tide against the Georgia Bulldogs. These have been the two dominant teams over the last, I guess, probably the last decade, with a few peek-ins by Michigan and by Clemson. But really, these two teams have been on the forefront of college football playoffs each and every year. Had it not been for Alabama losing to Texas during the regular season, Georgia would have once again had a chance to defend their championship and really have a shot to be the first team to win three consecutive Lord have mercy, college football championships in some time. But unfortunately, the Bulldogs were shut out of the college football playoffs last year. Last year, they only had four teams that could go instead of this year having 12. So the Bulldogs did not get a chance to defend their title. And a lot of people are feeling sideways about that, but the bottom line is you got to go by head-to-head. Texas beat Alabama. Alabama beat Georgia. So Georgia had to stay at the house. And plus, Alabama beat Georgia in the critical time they had to, which was in the SEC championship. So that meant that the Bulldogs had to stay at home. So I'm sure they're going to be feeling some kind of way as they travel to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to take on the Crimson Tide, who is now led by a new leader. Coach DeBoer has now taken over, coming over from the Washington Huskies to take over the reins that were left by the college football legend, probably the greatest college football coach of all time, Mr. Nick Saban, is out. And the reason that he gave for being out is a reason that I think that if in fact college football isn't careful, they're going to kill the golden goose. Nick Saban leaving college football ranks because of the NIL and all the chaos and the quest for money that's going on. Now, before I sound like the old guy that, says everything was better in my day and this, that, and the other thing, and how much better things were, the bottom line is it's fair for players to be paid. The problem is that right now, the way college football and the NCAA is doing things, there's no real regulation. So it's like the Wild Wild West. And in fact, Deion Sanders said it best. He said, hey, look, at the end of the day, NIL is supposed to mean name, image, and likeness, which means, in fact, it's supposed to be a situation where the players are being paid for endorsing something, whether it be a product, like a car deal like I work for, or you have a situation where the player is signing jerseys, or the player gets compensated for jersey sales. All those kind of things make perfect sense. Even if you had a situation where players were able to somehow get some portion of the gate, all those things make sense. But right now, what they have is basically an open version of what has been going on in college football for years, which is boosters basically paying athletes to play on their particular teams. Well, the problem is when you couple that with the fact that you now have the transfer portal, where players don't have to wait a year, they don't lose any eligibility, they can transfer to another college and play immediately. You have a situation now where it has become, like I mentioned, like the Wild Wild West. You have a situation where the players are basically saying, I'm going to come here or not come here based on how much you pay me. Like I say again, we know it's been going on for a while. We get it, but at the end of the day, we have to have some type of way to regulate this in some way where you don't have what you have had this year already. You've had a student suing a school saying that the school promised him XYZ amount of money, I think $1 million, and didn't pay him. You have a situation where at UNLV, allegedly, the player stopped playing because allegedly the school did not pay him. And so he said, good news, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not playing. So this is the kind of craziness that has now gone on in college football. And I do believe if they don't do something to stop this, you're going to have massive problems going forward. And what's going to happen is you're going to lose the fan base. One of the reasons why people tune into college football week in and week out is because it is, first of all, must-see TV. Every game in the regular season means something. Maybe not so much now, as much now, because you have 12 teams and not just four. But you still had at least the facade of people playing just because they wanted to play, because they were energized about playing for their school, about getting to a bowl game or to a championship game, and that was the fun in it. Versus professional football, it's all about a check. Basically, I know guys play for the Super Bowl and so forth and so on, but as you hear each and every year, it's really about getting paid because these guys are professionals. So hopefully, for everyone's sake, college football doesn't kill the golden goose by messing around and having fans get disgruntled. And people think it can't happen. But look, NASCAR was a rising sport a few years ago, and it fell right off the table. Now, most of it, in full candor, was because their star, their one of their great superstars, Dale Earnhardt, died in a tragic car crash. But not only that, it became too corporate. It became too much about the money and the money only. Races being moved from different venues because they felt that they could expand the fan base and the dollars received corporately by moving them out of traditional venues where they sold out, where people made it kind of almost like a family event, to something where ticket prices were raised. They actually moved them from venues, and eventually lost their fan base. Don't get me wrong, NASCAR is still must-see TV in many cases, but yeah, I cover NASCAR here in Atlanta, and I've even went to Talladega. You don't have are the fans there? They are, but you don't have that full house like virtual standing room only capacity that you used to have. So, like I said, hopefully college football doesn't do the same thing that NASCAR did. All right. So, as far as the preview this week, like I said, the big games, you got a bunch of them. Biggest one here in our area is obviously the Alabama Crimson Tide against the Georgia Bulldogs. These two teams both ranked in the top 5 in the country. Alabama ranked 4, Georgia ranked 2. Georgia has, interestingly enough, their ranking, I think, is based more on what they've done in previous years versus who they are right now. They don't look like the same Georgia team that we have seen over the years, especially the past 3 years. They look a little. I don't know if the word is flat, not fluffy, but they just don't look like the same team. They don't look as dominant, especially on defense. So it's going to be really I think, a tough game for Georgia to go down into Alabama and win, especially since Alabama beat them in the SEC championship, and they seem to have a lot of problems stopping Jalen Milrose. Now, of course, if you go back and watch that game, Georgia made some critical errors that caused them eventually to lose in addition to that. But the big thing, they couldn't stop Jalen Milrose. And here's the thing, he's only better now. With the SEC championship game under his belt, a full season under his belt, going to the college football playoffs, he's going to be a much better quarterback. He's going to be a better thrower of the ball. He certainly is going to be a bit more accurate. And, of course, he's an absolute load to try to bring down as a runner. So I think that Alabama will squeeze out a victory today over Georgia at home. So that's one game to watch, probably the marquee game of the day. Other games you have coming up that are ones to watch: Ole Miss, an SEC team that has quietly moved up the rankings, now number 6 in the nation. They're taking on Kentucky. Kentucky gave Georgia all they can handle last week at home, but they're going to travel on the road down to Oxford. Look for Mississippi to win that game big. Another game that has some ramifications as far as the playoffs: number 15 Louisville heading to number 16 Notre Dame. Now, you remember a couple of weeks ago, Notre Dame got upset by Northern Illinois. Louisville coming off a big win over a hot Georgia Tech team, knocking them off. So look for Louisville, if they win this game, to move up possibly into the top 10. Another game that we're going to have our eyes on here today is Kansas State against Oklahoma State. Two teams that, from time to time make some noise in the college football eyeballs as far as us watching. They're going to be playing today. Whoever wins that game should, again, get up into the teens as far as their ranking. Kansas State ranked at 23, Oklahoma State ranked at number 20. Another marquee game for us to keep our eyeballs on is number 9, Penn State against number 19, Illinois. The Fighting Illini are undefeated, having one of their best seasons in several years. Penn State perennially in the top 10, trying to now crack that magic formula to get into college football playoffs. They should get in there this year. I don't see them not going because, like I say again, you have 12 teams that are there. So look at that game. Another game to look at that has ramifications: Texas A&M and Missouri in an SEC showdown. Missouri, another good team from the SEC, ranked 11 overall in the country. They'll be traveling down to College Station to take on Texas A&M. So those are some of your marquee games to take a look at. But like I said, the number one game that we will keep our eyes on, obviously, will be Georgia against Alabama, as the Crimson Tide will host the Georgia Bulldogs at home. Well, we're going to take a little break in the action here, and we're going to come back on more of the Real Talk Sports Show. Keep it locked right here for more of our Saturday sports update. And we're going to go to social media and see some of the comments that people have for our morning show. Stay tuned and take care.
Did you know that Allen Vigil Ford in Morrow, Georgia also has Lincoln? Over 35 years of using the Vigil Touch to provide excellent customer service, works hand in hand with the Lincoln Motor Company to provide a luxurious and seamless way to acquire your next luxury vehicle. Lincoln has an array of full-service complimentary owner benefits. These benefits include hospitality partnerships, service pickup and delivery, all which can be accessed through the Lincoln Way app. You can even contact the 24/7 concierge to have someone assist you. Come and see our great inventory of new and pre-owned Lincolns today. Call 678-364-7345 to make an appointment with one of our brand champions or shop 24/7 online at allenvigillincoln.net. Hey sports fans, tune in for live high school football Friday, 7:30 p.m. on RealTalkSports.net. Check out your favorite Metro Atlanta teams as they do battle on the gridiron. It's your high school game of the week, live streaming free Friday nights on RealTalkSports.net. For more sports coverage and great sports talk, catch the Real Talk Sports Show Tuesdays, 8 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch. Brought to you by Allen Vigil Ford in Morrow, a business giving back to their community. Give them a call at 678-364-3979 or check them out online at allenvigilford.net.
Hi guys, we're back here at the Real Talk Sports Show. I'm your host, the Minister Jonathan Simmons, and we thank God again for all those of you who tuned in to join us here. Remember, follow us anywhere here on social media at Real Talk Sports, the number 7. That's how you can find us anywhere. That's on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and even on TikTok. You can find us, all those spots. All right, let's go to social media here. We got some big shout outs for a good friend of the program, Mr. Sullivan. Sully's in the building. He says, oh, shucky ducky. He's back in the building. And he says, yeah, he's got a nickname for me, Pastor J. Slice. But I have to remind him, never on the dream. Thanks so much. All right, he's asking me here, did I hear, says, do you hear about a running back who just had a baby and he missed practice? I did not know about that. I'll have to do some research on that. We'll talk a little pro football in just a second. But I just want to touch on very briefly, you know, it's amazing how, now I go through this constantly, you know, where you're striving to be great and you take the gun out and shoot your own self here in the foot. WNBA has had a record year this year. Matter of fact, all of women's sports is at an all-time high as far as viewership, as far as women dominating the sports headlines. We saw what the women did in the Olympics on several different fields. We had record-breaking meets and runs and scores in gymnastics, everything. Even in the sport of rugby, women were coming out, not just from the United States, from all over the world, showing that, hey, we ball out too. And not only that, but coupling, I think, something that was a missing ingredient, the idea that a woman could be strong and a sportswoman, but still be feminine. And I think, as much as anything else, that has really caused the resurgence and the excitement about women's sports, because you can come on, I have a, I don't want to say I'm a girl dad, I'm a woman dad, because my daughter is fully grown in her 40s. But at the end of the day, as a father, you want your child, your daughter, to grow up to be a woman that is able to be, obviously, again, she can be tough, but we want her to be feminine. I know everybody doesn't like this. I know this is a topic that gets a little sideways, but to me, there should be the sensibility that there's differences between men and women, and that there should be differences between the feminine and masculine. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, that's the way God made it. But that's for a whole nother story. Anyway, you're probably saying, what's going on in the WNBA? So we have a couple of tracks running here with the WNBA. Number one, like I said again, record attendance, record eyeballs, lots of excitement, sold out stadiums all over the place. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that has caused that is has a racial overtone to it. Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA with a host of other top college athletes, but the other one that was kind of her foil, I don't want to say nemesis, but certainly a great adversary, was the Bayou Barbie, Angel Reese. And that's because of their titanic square off between their two teams in the NCAA playoffs. Well, LSU knocked off Iowa to win the national title. But what has happened is that as the two have gotten into the league, it harkens back to an era about 45 years ago when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came to the NBA, and it was kind of similar. The NBA at that time was struggling. There were a lot of racial overtones going on. And it still is, predominantly African American league, and the league had fallen into a lot of disrespect by the fans. Now, some of that was caused by the league, the type of play. We had an infusion, unfortunately, sadly, of a lot of guys getting caught up in the drug culture of that day. And to be very candid, a lot of people didn't like the fact that the teams, almost every single team, was almost majority black. And people just weren't interested. I know this is hard to believe, but the NBA at that time, the finals, in some cases on the West Coast, were on tape delay. Until two collegians came to the forefront, very similar, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, who both of them in their final years in college set up a game for the ages where the Larry Bird's undefeated Indiana State, him being player of the year, against Magic Johnson, who some people thought would player of the year as well, with Michigan State. And they squared off in a cataclysmic, titanic battle with Magic Johnson and Michigan State knocking off Larry Bird's Indiana State, and setting up this idea of these two guys continuing this rivalry as they got into the NBA, which they did. And it really did revive the NBA. I mean, Lakers and Celtics, while those guys were there, was much TV, and of course, Dr. J was there. But the NBA now became something to watch all over again. WNBA, fast forward to 2024, faced a similar situation where the league really had lost the interest, I think, of fans because of various reasons I'm not going to get into right now. But once again, you had this Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese come in. And unfortunately now, once again, racism has reared its ugly head. We had situations where the Connecticut Sun played the Indiana Fever in postseason. Indiana Fever is Caitlin Clark's team. Connecticut Sun was the third best team in the WNBA, one of the best teams in the WNBA all year long. Players complained, even in their home stadium in Connecticut, that there were racial slurs being thrown. There was thoughts that Caitlin Clark was being targeted by WNBA players, and this tinge of, like I said, this racism, people chanting, people saying things, a lot of people making comments about that. Well, I'm going to let you hear some remarks, or not hear, I'm going to read remarks here that Caitlin Clark says. She wanted to address this because she has been very vocal in saying, hey, this is not a racial thing. It's okay to be competitive. She goes, I have no beef against Angel Reese or any other player. I have no beef against players that have given me rough foul, because what she realizes is that in any profession, a rookie is going to be tested, especially a rookie that comes to a league with a lot of fanfare. And not only that, but a rookie that is made to be out the savior of the league. Okay, they're going to get some pushback. This is the way it is. I mean, it's right or wrong, that's just going to happen. And so there was a hard foul that Caitlin endured when she was playing against the Sun, one of many that's happened to her this year. And a lot of people felt that, number one, it was deliberate. And then there were some racial chants that went out towards the Connecticut Sun player. This is what Caitlin Clark has said in some of her uh, statements after that game. I'll read here. This article is from Fox Sports. It says WNBA rookie phenom Caitlin Clark has finished her first pro season, has already left an undeniable impact on the league. In just 1 year, Clark has been credited with drawing countless new followers to help the league break attendance and records in TV ratings. However, she does not approve of all the league's new followers. During her Indiana Fever exit interviews Friday, this is what she said of the loss to the Connecticut Sun. She said um, she was asked about a statement by the WNBA saying that they condemn any type of racist or derogatory or threatening comments directed at players, coaches, or other players in the league. And she says she denounced anyone following the WNBA that makes prejudicial comments towards players. She said those aren't fans, those are trolls. Nobody in our league should be facing any sort of racism, disrespectful, or hurtful comments and threats. So, look, the WNBA is going to have to get this under control, and they have to find some way to get this fan base and get really people in general across this country to stop it. I mean, we're in 2024, America. Let's put our big boy pants on and big girl pants on and grow up. It's not about race, okay? It's not about any of that. You can say two contrasting styles. You can say Midwest versus something more urban, but even that's not true. Because, hey, enjoy the competition, root for your favorite player, and stop the nonsense. I'm just saying. All right, that's all I got to say about WNBA and all the drama they got going on. Meanwhile, back here in the A, in Atlanta, we have the annual showdown, part one of you know who, the Saints, as some people call them in here in Atlanta. The Aints are in town, getting ready to square off against the Falcons for the first time here in 2024. Falcons come into this game 1-2, and I think desperately needing a victory. Saints are 2-1, but they really look dominant in their first two games. I mean, they were just tearing people up, averaging 45 points a game. Derek Carr, who many people kind of threw off as being a afterthought, as being who was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC South, has had an excellent year so far. And we've also have the resurgence of Alvin Kamara, a guy who had been MIA really last year. And this is why I think that the Saints were not as good as they had been in previous years. Well, Kamara is back. This guy is a fantasy point legend so far this year. He has been doing as he did before, on the ground, in the air, and the Falcons are going to have to find a way to stop him. The other thing, too, about this situation with the Falcons is in order for the Falcons to win this game, which I think is a must-win game for them. I know it's early in the season, but I think it is an absolutely must-win game. They've got to find a way to stop Kamara. They've got to find a way to get real, when I say pressure, they need sacks on defense. Now, I understand that you've got a lot of moving parts here. You just added on Matthew Judon. You've got a lot of draft picks. But the Falcons are going to have to find a way to sack the quarterback. One of the things I think the Falcons have done very, very poorly in these last 4 or 5 years, including so far what we've seen here with our new regime, is their inability to put the players in the best possible position to do what they do best. And you say, Preacher, what do you mean by that? For example, the incessant use of Kyle Pitts as a blocker. Okay, the guy's a tight end, a receiving tight end. The guy was supposed to be a unicorn. Outside of a big 50-yard catch that we saw last week, we haven't really seen much of that from Kyle Pitts. And because I think it's being misused. People talked about how he missed blocks in critical times against Pittsburgh. Why would you have a guy who's supposed to be a wide receiving tight end trying to block probably a guy's going to be Defensive Player of the Year this year in T.J. Watt of Pittsburgh? Why would you do that? In fact, the thing that's so crazy about it is you traded for a guy, Charlie Warner from San Francisco, telling us that he was a blocking tight end. Why was he lined up against Watts? Why was he there chipping down on him? Okay, so the second thing is looking at staying with defense. You have a guy like Troy Anderson, who apparently is a guy that, although you picked him very high, is a guy that seems to be very uncomfortable in the inside linebacker position. As a matter of fact, he seemed to be at times lost. Seems to always get there a step too late. Why would you not take this guy and put him out as a blitzing linebacker, utilizing that 4.4 speed and just tell him, son, just go after the ball. I don't need you to think about scheme, all that stuff. Just go after the ball. Sack somebody. Same thing as our newest addition, Matthew Judon, a guy who's been one of the sack leaders in the NFL his last 3 years of playing. We had plays against Pittsburgh where Judon was dropping into coverage. Let me get this straight. You brought a guy in who's been a double-digit sack guy, and you got him dropping in coverage. I don't get it. The other problem I have on offense, you have a situation on offense where the play calling has been terribly predictable. And we don't want to blame it totally on the coaches. Also, the players themselves have not executed properly. The Falcons have to get rid of all those bugaboos this week against the Saints. But once again, we're going to have what we've had the last several games at home, where we have the team that we're playing, their fans shouting, cheering, having a good time as they leave the game with another victory. And once again, us watching our coach go on about some type of, with the style we play, what we're trying to do. We got to clean things up. I don't know about you guys. I'm tired of hearing that. I just want to see the Falcons use the players they have properly and come out of here with a victory. If they do that, if they run the ball, get the ball more to Tyler Algiers. I understand everybody loves Bijan Robinson, but to me, all these bubble screens, these quick flare outs, is too much and too predictable. You have to run the ball the old-fashioned way. Get maybe another blocker in, put in a third tight end, maybe put in a second offensive tackle, a third offensive tackle, use a jumbo backfield, whatever you got to do, run the ball, and also give Tyler Algiers more carries, because the bowling ball can soften up the defense like thunder and lightning, like back in the day. Go look up, for you guys that are younger, go look up Lynn Kane and William Andrews. Thunder and lightning. The Falcons were very effective using that type of play. I'm just saying. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Saturday Sports Update. Remember, you can follow us anywhere on social media at Real Talk Sports, the number 7. Especially if you're a fan of high school football here on South Metro Atlanta. We do a lot of stuff covering them. We have some great stuff on TikTok and on Instagram and even on YouTube. Some great shorts where you can see some highlights and see some of your favorite players and coaches in interviews post-game and at press conferences. All right, guys, until next time we get back together again, I want to remind you, if you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, your personal Savior, that is something you have to do immediately. Why? Because he loved you. He died for your sins. If you believe in him, you have two great things that will happen to you. Number one, become a child of God. And number two, a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. That means you now can go to God like a heavenly parent, ask him for what you need or desire, and according to his will, give it to you. When you die, you go to a happy place called heaven and avoid that nasty place called hell. I don't know about you, but like option number 2 is option number 1 instead of option number 2. All right, guys, until the next time we get back together again, we say as we do each week, God bless you and have a wonderful rest of the day or evening, whichever may apply. So long and take care.